I never imagined a simple DNA test could destroy everything I thought was real. That line has been echoing in my head for months now. When I first saw those results, those cold printed words on a cheap white paper, it felt like the ground beneath me had split open. There was no thunder, no screaming, no cinematic collapse, just silence. The kind of silence that eats through your bones. My name is Amara. I'm 32 years old, a mother to a 2-year-old boy named Ayan, and, until recently, a wife. My husband's name is Samir. We met in college, fell in love like fools who thought love could fix anything, and married with the blessings of both our families. For years, I thought we were happy. Ordinary, but happy. We lived in a small house at the edge of Lahore, a place that smelled of rain and jasmine after every storm. Every evening, I would watch Samir walk through the gate, his shoulders slightly slouched, tie loose, smiling at me like the world outside didn't exist. And Ayan, my little miracle. His laughter was the soundtrack of our home. The clinking of toys on the marble floor, his tiny footsteps racing behind the cat, the faint "Mama" echoing from every corner. Samir's best friend, Hamza, was always around. If Samir was the steady river, Hamza was the wind, charming, unpredictable, full of jokes that made everyone laugh a little too loudly. He had been part of our lives since before I came into the picture. He was Uncle Hamza to Ayan, the one who brought colorful balloons, who would drop by unannounced with biryani or movie tickets, who would tease me about my terrible tea-making skills. I never thought to question their friendship. Why would I? Trust once built feels invincible. It all started on an ordinary Thursday evening. The smell of sautéed onions filled the kitchen, while Ayan sat in his high chair, smearing mashed potatoes on his face. Samir was running late again, something that had become routine since his promotion. Hamza had dropped by earlier, claiming he had to borrow a power bank, but staying long enough to share stories about his new car. "You spoil Ayan too much," I told him as I laughed as he balanced my son's toy car on his nose. He grinned. "A little spoiling never hurt anyone, Amara. He's got your eyes, you know, sharp and curious." I remember thinking how kind that sounded, how harmless. If only I'd known how those words would one day haunt me. Life before the truth was painfully ordinary. Morning coffees, laundry that never ended, bills stacked on the counter, and shared glances that said, "We're in this together." Samir and I weren't perfect. We argued about stupid things, about money, about his late nights, about how he'd forgotten to fix the leaky tap again. But every argument ended the same way. Quiet apologies, late-night cups of chai, and the feeling that love, real love, was supposed to survive small cracks. It wasn't one big moment that shattered us. It was a slow erosion. A series of tiny, forgettable moments that, when pieced together, formed a pattern I had been blind to see. The first clue came wrapped in something innocent. Ayan had fallen sick, nothing major, just a persistent fever that wouldn't break. Our doctor suggested a full medical checkup, including some genetic screenings. She said it would help rule out hereditary conditions, especially since I had a family history of anemia. It was routine. At least that's what I thought. 2 weeks later, the clinic called. They wanted both parents to come in for a follow-up. Samir was too busy, so I went alone with Ayan. The doctor's office smelled like antiseptic and something faintly floral. She looked nervous as she flipped through the report. "Mrs. Amara, I just need to verify. This is your husband's information." I nodded, confused. Her eyes darted to the paper again, then to me. "I'm afraid the genetic markers don't align," she said softly. I blanked. "I don't understand." She hesitated, then continued, "According to these results, your husband, Samir, cannot be the biological father." The world went quiet. I remember hearing the hum of the air conditioner, the ticking clock, the distant chatter of nurses in the corridor, everything except my own breathing. There must be a mistake, I thought. Maybe the samples were switched. Maybe it was a lab error. Science can be wrong, right? I clutched the paper like it was a piece of broken glass. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched Ayhan's chest rise and fall as he slept. His tiny fingers curled into a fist around his toy car, Hamza's last gift. And for the first time, something inside me twisted. I told myself it was just coincidence. I told myself I was being paranoid. But somewhere deep down, a shadow began to form. For days, I tried to ignore it. I didn't tell Samir. How could I? How do you look at your husband and say, "Our son might not be yours"? I needed to be sure. So I did what no one ever imagines doing. I ordered a home DNA kit, one of those discreet, easy-to-use ones from a private lab in Karachi. They said results in 7 days. 7 days of hell. Samir was oblivious, still busy with work. Hamza visited as usual, playing with Ayhan, cracking jokes. Once he looked at me a moment too long, like he could sense something had changed. I brushed it off. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was me. By the 5th day, I couldn't eat. By the 7th, I had stopped breathing altogether. The email came late at night. I opened it in the dark, the glow of the screen reflecting in my tears before they even began to fall. Probability of paternity, 0.00% for Samir. Probability of paternity, 99.99% for Hamza. My hands went numb. It felt like my body detached from itself, floating above the pain, refusing to believe. The man I loved, the man I trusted, the man I called brother, they had destroyed everything. I don't remember how long I sat there, staring at that email. Maybe hours, maybe a lifetime. The screen went black at some point, and the room filled with my reflection, eyes wide, lips trembling, face pale as ash. It didn't look like me. It looked like someone who had just watched her world burn. The sound of Ayhan's cry pulled me back. He was awake, restless, calling for me in that small, sleepy voice that always melted my heart. I picked him up, held him close, pressed my lips to his forehead. He smelled like baby lotion and innocence, and yet, every time I looked at him now, I saw two faces, mine and a ghost of someone I didn't want to think about, Hamza. The next morning, the world pretended to go on as usual. The sun rose, milk boiled, Ayhan giggled as he smeared jam on the table, and I smiled back, pretending everything was fine. But inside, something had already died. Samir came home late that evening. I was sitting at the dining table, the printed DNA report lying in front of me, face down like a loaded gun. He kissed my forehead, distracted, scrolling to his phone. "Rough day?" I asked, my voice steady, almost too calm. He sighed. "You know how it is. Hamza and I were at the client site till 8. Hamza and I. The words pierced deeper than I expected. I stared at him for a long moment, searching for a trace of guilt, of suspicion, of something. But he was just normal. I slid the report across the table. "Samir, read this," I said quietly. He frowned, picked it up, eyes scanning the words. His expression shifted from confusion to disbelief, then to something darker. "What is this?" "It's a DNA report," I said. He looked up sharply. Why would you even do this?" Because the doctor said something didn't match. And you didn't think to tell me? His voice cracked. I wanted to be sure. Sure of what? His hand trembled as he slammed the paper down. Sure that I'm not his father? Are you serious right now? Tears burned my eyes, but I didn't look away. It's not a mistake, Samir. The test confirms it. You're not his father. For a moment, he just stared at me, then laughed. A broken, disbelieving laugh. You must have messed up the samples. You don't even know how these labs work. It's not a mistake, I whispered. His voice turned hard. Then whose is he, Amara? My lips parted, but no sound came. He stepped closer. Whose? My throat tightened. Hamza. The silence that followed could have shattered glass. Samir blinked, as if I spoke in another language. Then his face drained of color. Hamza, he repeated, each syllable sharp, disbelieving. My tears fell freely now. I didn't know, Samir. I swear to you, I didn't know. His laugh was hollow. You expect me to believe that my best friend, my brother, slept with my wife and you didn't know? He shoved the chair back, pacing the floor, running both hands through his hair. Tell me, Amara, when did it happen? While I was at work? While he was here making jokes? Was Ayan conceived while I trusted both of you under the same roof? Stop, I cried. I didn't betray you, Samir. Please, listen. But he was beyond listening. He kicked the chair aside, eyes burning with a fury I'd never seen before. You even hear yourself? You had a child with my best friend, Amara. My best friend. The words hit harder than any slap could. I fell silent. There was nothing I could say that would make sense. Nothing that could undo the truth. Samir grabbed his keys and stormed out. The door slammed, and the sound echoed through the house like a gunshot. Ayan began to cry upstairs. I rushed to him, my hands trembling as I lifted him from his crib. He clung to me, unaware that the world around him had just fallen apart. I rocked him until his sobs softened, whispering, "It's okay, baby. Mama's here." But inside, I wasn't sure Mama was here anymore. The next day, Hamza came over. Uninvited. He stood at the gate, holding a grocery bag like it was any other day. I opened the door, but didn't let him in. "Where's Samir?" he asked casually, eyes flicking to Ayan playing on the sofa. "Don't," I said, my voice barely audible. He frowned. "Don't what?" I handed him the folded report. He looked at it, confused at first, then terrified. What is this?" "Read it." His eyes darted across the lines, and I saw his breathing change. Color drained from his face. He stepped back, shaking his head. "No, Amara, this can't be right." "Don't you dare lie to me." "I'm not lying, I swear." I cut him off. "Ayan is your son, Hamza, and you knew it." He opened his mouth, then shut it again. His lips trembled. "I swear I didn't know for sure. It was just one night. We were drunk. Samir had gone to Karachi. You were..." "Don't," I said sharply. "Don't try to explain it away." Tears welled in his eyes. "I tried to forget, Amara. I thought it was a mistake, something we could bury. I didn't mean for this to happen." I wanted to scream, to hit him, to destroy something, anything. But instead, I just stood there, hollow. "You didn't mean for this to happen," I repeated slowly. "You came to my house. You played with my son. You smiled at my husband. And you didn't mean for this to happen?" He took a step closer. "Please, Amara, let me fix this. I'll talk to Samir." I stepped back, my voice trembling with rage. "You will not go near him or my son. Ever." He froze. "But he's my..." "No." I said firmly. "You lost that right the moment you betrayed him, the moment you betrayed me." For a long moment, he just stood there, eyes glistening, breathing hard. Then he whispered, "I'm sorry," and walked away. I watched him go until he disappeared down the street. Only then did I realize I was shaking so violently that I had to lean against the doorframe to stay upright.
That night, the house was too quiet. No laughter, no footsteps, no familiar rhythm of family life. Just me, my son, and the weight of a truth that felt too heavy to live with. The clock ticked toward midnight. Samir still hadn't come home. I sat on the floor beside Ayan's crib, whispering to the dark, "I don't know how to fix this." And for the first time since becoming a mother, I felt completely alone. The clock struck 3 in the morning when the door finally opened. I didn't move. Samir walked in, his shirt half untucked, his eyes red, from alcohol or tears, I couldn't tell. He didn't look at me. He walked straight to the living room, sat down on the sofa, and buried his face in his hands. For a long while, there was only silence. Then he said quietly, "I went to Hamza's place." My heart stopped. What did he say? Samir gave a dry, bitter laugh. What could he say? He didn't deny it. He cried. He begged. He said it was a mistake, that it happened once. He looked up at me then, eyes hollow. Once was enough, wasn't it? Tears stung my eyes, but I didn't move closer. He looked so broken, so lost, and yet I knew I was the reason. "I'm sorry, Samir," I whispered. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I didn't even remember that night until—" He stood up suddenly, his voice cutting through the air like a knife. "Don't you dare say that. Don't say you don't remember. You were there." His voice cracked. He turned away, his hands trembling. "I spent 3 years raising that boy, loving him, thinking he was mine. Every sleepless night, every fever, every first word. And now every time I look at him, I'll see Hamza." He sank back onto the sofa, covering his face. The silence that followed was unbearable. Finally, he said softly, "I don't know if I can ever forgive you." And somehow, those words hurt more than if he'd shouted. For the next few days, the house became a graveyard of sound. Samir stayed in the guest room. He didn't speak to me, didn't look at me, barely touched his food. When he came home from work, Ayan would run to him with open arms, and he'd freeze. Then, forcing a smile, he'd lift him, kiss his forehead, and walk away. It killed me every time. At night, I'd hear muffled sobs through the walls, not Ayan's, but Samir's. And I'd cry too, silently, clutching my pillow until my fingers went numb. A week later, I found a packed suitcase by the door. My stomach dropped. "Samir?" He didn't meet my eyes as he zipped it shut. "I'm going to stay at my sister's for a while." "For how long?" He hesitated. "I don't know." I reached out instinctively, touching his arm. "Please, don't go like this. Don't leave without saying goodbye to Ayan." He froze for a moment. Then he turned, looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "I don't know how to say goodbye to something that was never mine." The words sliced through the air, leaving only emptiness behind. He picked up his suitcase, walked to Ayan's noom, and stood by his crib. He didn't say anything, just brushed his fingers through Ayan's soft hair and whispered something I couldn't hear. Then he left. The door closed quietly, but, to me, it sounded like the end of everything. Days turned into weeks. People started noticing. My mother called, worried. "Beta, is everything okay? Samir hasn't been around." I lied, said he was on a business trip. But inside, I was unraveling. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't look at my son without drowning in guilt. Everywhere I turned, there were ghosts. Samir's laughter at breakfast, Hamza's voice at the gate, Ayan's innocent eyes, a reflection of everything I'd lost. One night, I stood by the balcony, the wind cold against my face. The city lights blinked below, indifferent to my pain. And for a brief, terrifying moment, I wondered if the world would even notice if I disappeared. But then I heard Ayan's tiny voice call out, "Mama?" That one word pulled me back from the edge. I turned, ran to him, and held him tight. He looked up at me, confused. "Mama sad?" I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "Yes, baby. Mama's sad." He put his little hands on my cheeks and said, "Don't be sad. I love you." And just like that, something inside me broke and began to heal at the same time. The next morning, I made a decision. If I couldn't change the past, I'd at least face it. I called Hamza. He answered on the first ring. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. I took a deep breath. "I don't want your apology. I need your honesty." There was silence. Then he said, "Samir is not talking to me. He blocked my number. I don't blame him." "Good," I said, "because you don't deserve his forgiveness." He sighed. "I know. Listen to me, Hamza. I don't want you near me or Ayan again. Not for birthdays, not for holidays, not for anything. You've done enough damage." He didn't argue, just whispered, "Take care of yourself," and hung up. After that, it was just me and Ayan. The days were long, the nights longer, but slowly, painfully, I began to rebuild. I started journaling, cooking again, taking Ayan to the park. Every time he laughed, I reminded myself, he's innocent, he's mine. But the ache never fully left. Some nights, I'd still stare at the door, half expecting Samir to walk in and say, "Let's fix this." But he never did. Then, one rainy evening, 2 months later, the doorbell rang. When I opened it, Samir stood there, drenched, holding a small umbrella. He looked exhausted, but softer somehow, like the anger had burned out, leaving only sadness behind. "I didn't know where else to go," he said quietly. For a moment, I couldn't move. Then I stepped aside and let him in. He sat on the sofa, looking around like everything was both familiar and foreign. Ayan peeked from behind the curtain, then ran to him with a happy shout, "Papa!" Samir froze, then slowly lifted him into his arms. A tear slipped down his cheek. "I missed you, champ," he whispered. I stood there, watching them, my heart breaking and healing all over again. After a long silence, he looked at me and said, "I still don't know what to do, Amara, but I know I can't keep running from my own home." And for the first time in months, I let myself hope. The rain kept falling long after Samir came in. It drummed softly against the windows, filling the silence between us. I made tea, even though my hands trembled so much the cups clinked on the tray. He took one, gave a faint smile. "Still too much sugar?" I nodded, whispering, "You never liked it that way." He chuckled under his breath. "I guess some things never change." That was the first time we'd spoken like that. Gently, almost like before. Ayan sat between us on the carpet, humming to himself as he built towers with his blocks. Every few minutes, he'd look up at Samir and say, Papa, look!
And every time, Samir smiled, no matter how heavy his eyes looked. It felt fragile, like a truce that could shatter if either of us breathed too loud. Finally, when Ayan dozed off on the couch, Samir spoke. "I've been going to therapy," he said, his voice calm. I looked up, startled. "You have?" He nodded. "My sister pushed me, said if I didn't talk, I'd drown in it. And she was right." He ran a hand over his face. For a long time, I kept asking myself, why you? Why him? What did I do wrong? Tears welled up in my eyes, but I stayed quiet. He kept seeing Hamza's face every time he looked at Ayan. I tried to hate him, hate you. But then, he paused, looking at our sleeping son. Then I realized none of it was his fault. He's just a child. And he still calls me Papa.
The air between us felt charged, not with anger this time, but with a kind of fragile honesty. "I know you didn't plan this," he said softly, "but I also know we can't pretend it didn't happen." I swallowed hard. I don't want to pretend. I just want to do right by Ayan, and maybe fix what I broke, if that's even possible. He looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "I don't know if I can love you the same way again, but I still care about you, and I care about this family." The tears I'd held back for months finally spilled. "Samir, I never stopped loving you, not for a single moment." He looked away, his jaw tight, but his voice was soft. "Love isn't always enough, Amara, but maybe it's a place to start." The next few weeks were cautious, like learning to walk on glass. Samir didn't move back in fully. He'd come over in the mornings, help with breakfast, take Ayan to the park. Some days he'd stay for dinner, some nights he wouldn't. We didn't talk about Hamza again. It was an unspoken agreement. The past was done, the wound still healing. But there were small moments, quiet gestures that meant more than words. When I caught the flu, Samir brought soup. When his mother called asking where he was, he said, "With Amara and Ayan." And when Ayan's school hosted a family day, we went together. Standing there, hand in hand, watching our son laugh on the swings, for a brief, fleeting second, it felt like peace. One evening, a message came through my phone. It was from Hamza. "I heard Samir's back. I'm glad. I wanted to say I'm leaving the city. I think it's better for everyone." I stared at the screen for a long time before deleting the message. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. Months passed. The sharp pain dulled into a quiet ache, something I learned to live with. Samir began smiling more. Ayan grew taller, louder, happier. And one night, as we put him to bed, Samir turned to me and said, "You know, I read something in therapy today. It said, forgiveness isn't saying it's okay. It's saying, I won't let this destroy me." I looked at him, my throat tightening, and he met my eyes, steady. "I don't want this to destroy us anymore." Then slowly, he reached out and took my hand. Not with passion, not with certainty, but with quiet, deliberate choice. And for me, that was enough. Still, healing wasn't linear. There were nights when I'd wake up to him staring at the ceiling, lost in thought. Days when I'd catch the flicker of hurt in his eyes and wonder if it would ever truly fade. But he stayed. We both did. We started going to counseling together, not to erase the past, but to understand it. Our therapist said something I'll never forget. It said, "Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's remembering differently." And maybe that's what we learned to do. To remember differently. To remember the night of betrayal not as the end, but as the moment we began to see each other's humanity, flaws and all,
A year later, on Ayan's 4th birthday, our house was filled with laughter again. Samir lit the candles while Ayan clapped his tiny hands. As I watched them, something inside me softened completely. When the guests had left and the house grew quiet, Samir handed me a small box. Inside was a silver bracelet. Simple, engraved with 3 names: Ayan, Amara, Samir. I looked at him, confused. He said quietly, "I'm not giving this because I've forgotten. I'm giving it because I choose to stay." My hands shook as I fastened it. "Samir?" He took a deep breath. "I still don't know what our future looks like, but I know this. I love our son. And somewhere, in all this pain, I still love you too." I closed my eyes, letting his words sink in. They weren't grand or perfect, but they were real. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. That night, as we tucked Ayan in, he looked up at both of us and said sleepily, "Papa, Mama, you happy now?" Samir and I exchanged a glance, the kind that carried both history and hope. I smiled, stroking Ayan's hair. "Yes, baby, we're trying to be." And as the lights dimmed, I realized maybe happiness doesn't come from perfect families. Maybe it comes from broken ones that choose to heal anyway.
They say truth sets you free, but what they don't tell you is that before freedom comes a kind of breaking, a shattering so deep that you have to gather the pieces of yourself by hand. That's what this story was for me, a breaking. And then, slowly, a rebuilding. When I first found out the truth about Ayan's paternity, I thought my life was over. I thought every good memory, every laugh, every shared morning coffee had been poisoned by that one mistake. But now, when I look back, I realize life isn't divided neatly into before and after. It's just one long, complicated journey of choices, forgiveness, and growth. Hamza's betrayal, my weakness, Samir's pain, they were all threads in a larger story I couldn't see while living it. And somewhere along the way, I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean accepting what happened. It means refusing to let bitterness be the loudest voice in your life. There were nights I wanted revenge, nights I wanted to pack my bags and disappear. But every time, Ayan's little hands would reach for mine, and I'd remember why I needed to stay. He didn't ask for any of this. He just needed love. And somehow, even in the wreckage, love was still there, buried, but breathing. Samir and I are still learning how to be us again. We take it one day at a time. Some good, some not. There are moments of laughter, moments of silence, but there's also a quiet kind of understanding now. We've both changed. We've both grown. Sometimes I catch him looking at Ayan with a softness that breaks me all over again. Not because it hurts, but because it heals. It reminds me that family isn't defined by blood, but by the courage to stay when leaving would be easier. If you're listening to this and you've been betrayed, let me say this. You don't owe anyone your forgiveness, but you owe yourself your peace. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to keep living, not in spite of what happened, but because you deserve more than the pain it caused. When I think of everything now, I don't see just the lies or the DNA test or the tears. I see a little boy's laughter. I see a husband's quiet strength. And I see a woman who learned that even the deepest wounds can grow wildflowers if you let light in. So tell me,
If you were in my place, if the truth you found shattered everything you believed, would you walk away? Or would you stay and try to build something new from the ashes? Tell me in the comments. And if my story touched your heart, stay with me. There are more stories like mine. Real, messy, human stories. Because sometimes the most painful truths lead to the most honest lives.